Unfortunately, we live in a country where it's expected that over 100 of our police officers will give their lives on a yearly basis, and countless more may suffer a career-ending injury. These injuries and deaths are completely random occurrences. To give you an example of how random, for over 52 years, my family and the Winfield family have been in law enforcement in the county of Marion, about an hour north of Columbus. These things are so random that my family has a combined 125 years in law enforcement, and we've not suffered a single injury or death. But unfortunately, the same can't be said of the Winfields. With a combined 50 years of law enforcement experience, they have suffered 2 terrible incidents in their family. When I started the sheriff's office in Marion in 1994, I met Randy Winfield. He and I became friends. He was a dispatcher at the time. He and I were very close in age and became fast friends. He and his brother Corey and I would hang out all the time, and as you can see, we were kind of crazy. Things were great. Friendships were solid, partnerships were solid, and Corey soon went through the police academy himself, as did Brandy, and started working at the Marion Police Department with their father, Rick Winfield. Their father, Rick, had been an officer with Marion Police Department for about 20 years, and loved working with his son Corey once Corey got hired on there. Not long after that, Brandy and his father had a falling out, and Brandy moved in with me. He lived with me for about a year, and we were inseparable. We stayed close until 2000, when I got into IT work and had to move to Columbus. Unfortunately, Brandy was murdered on October 14, 2004. Less than 3 years later, Corey was hit by a drunk driver and suffered a traumatic brain injury. The impact of friends, family, and co-workers of the Winfields was absolutely devastating. I've mentioned that I was close to Brandy and Corey, but my oldest brother, Butch, was also very close to them. Both of us being cop families, we were pretty much intertwined in such a small community. My family took the Winfield's tragedies very hard. This is my brother and his wife there on the left, and that's Corey and his wife on the right. As I mentioned, the first of the Winfield's tragedies was the murder of Brandy. Brandy was working midnight on working a midnight to 8 a.m. shift and was on routine patrol in the early morning hours of October 14, 2004. He received a call regarding a disabled vehicle along State Route 423 just north of Waldo, Ohio. He responded to the call and radioed and that he had made contact with 2 Hispanic males. The men had a gas can and told him they had run out of gas. Brandy opened the back door of his cruiser and offered them a ride to the gas station. Unfortunately, because these 2 individuals did not speak English and had warrants for them out of Delaware County, they interpreted this as Brandy trying to arrest them. Some sort of a struggle ensued, and one of the men shot Brandy in the head, put him back in his cruiser, and shoved the cruiser off the road into a ravine. The men fled and a manhunt was launched. They were caught just days later in Marion. One of them only got a 2-year probation sentence, and the other got a 40-year sentence. The entire county, city, and state mourned Brandy. Mourners stood in city streets holding flags or signs of support for the family, and people he'd never met before were greeting the family with hugs. Brandy's funeral had to be held in the Coliseum due to the sheer amount of people who he'd touched and who wanted to come and pay respects. Officers from other cities, counties, and even states showed up and showed their agency support. About 2 years after this, once all the associated red tape was navigated, that stretch of 423 where Brandy was killed was redesignated the Brandy Winfield Memorial Highway. Every year there's an annual poker run dedicated to Brandy, and every year it kicks off at his gravesite, and the turnout is always amazing. Brandy's family was devastated. His father, as I mentioned, a police officer himself, lost a lot of his faith in the county's ability to keep their deputies safe. His mother fell into a deep depression. His brother Corey became much more serious about protecting his father while they were both on duty, as to not subject his mother to more tragedy. Brandy's wife Sarah, in her 20s, was now a single widowed mother of 2 boys who would never see their father again. Those boys today are doing much better and getting along in life pretty well now. But sadly, this wasn't the last of the tragedies to hit the Winfield family. On August 19, 2007, Corey finished his 3 to 11 shift at the police department and got on his motorcycle to head home. Sadly, he only made it about half a mile before he was struck by an underage drunk driver named Joshua Abrams. Winfield had his pelvis broken and his skull fractured, resulting in a traumatic brain injury. He spent the next 3 months, most of that 3 months, in critical condition in the hospital, and Abrams spent the next 5 years in prison. Corey had to have a tracheotomy at the scene to ensure that he was able to breathe until he could be taken to the hospital. He's undergone years of speech and physical therapy, essentially learning to walk and talk again. Despite having every reason to slip further into depression, Corey's mother rose to the occasion and concentrated on her son's needs. While this may have shattered a lesser marriage, it only served to make Corey's wife, Lindsay, all the more devoted to her husband. Once Corey was sufficiently rehabilitated, the two would speak every 2 weeks at the Second Chance Counseling Center in Delaware County, sharing their story to encourage sobriety among their clients. In closing, I hope that you've learned that the sacrifices made by those who choose to uphold the law aren't always made solely by the officers. Sometimes their families are irreparably affected. Today, Brandy and Corey's parents are doing great. Brandy was just honored at his old high school, and his parents were given football jerseys with his unit number. I hope you take away from this a new understanding of what it means to be a family member of a police officer.